There's a morning, early spring, 6:30 maybe, fog still sitting low in the tree line, and two men in plain dark clothes are walking a 40-acre parcel that went up for sale 9 days ago. The older one, the father, hasn't said a word since they stepped off the gravel road. He doesn't look at the view, doesn't look at the old fence line or the clearing where the listing says perfect home site. He walks straight to the middle of the field, crouches down, and pushes his fingers into the earth, pulls up a handful, breaks it apart, slow, rolls it between his thumb and forefinger like he's reading something written in the dirt. His son is already 50 yards away, walking downhill toward the lowest point of the property, where the ground dips into shadow near a stand of willows. Neither of them brought a clipboard. Neither of them asked for the listing sheet. And there's no realtor within 10 miles of this field. That for sale sign by the road, glossy, professional drone photo of rolling green, says breathtaking views and turnkey homestead potential. These two men haven't looked at it once, because they already know something about land that the sign will never tell you. There's a thing you can learn about soil in about 15 seconds if you know what to feel for. The father knows. He's got that handful of earth broken open in his palm, and he's looking at how it crumbles. Not reading a lab report, not waiting on a county extension office. Just his hand, the dirt, and 300 years of family memory about what good ground feels like between your fingers. If it balls up tight, slick, won't break apart, that's heavy clay. It'll hold water like a bowl. Your roots will rot, your basement will crack, your septic will fail before you ever pour a foundation. If it falls apart like powder, too sandy, won't hold a thing, your topsoil washes off the first hard rain, and your garden is growing in dust by July. What he's looking for is something in between. Crumbly, dark, smells like life, not like mud. Soil that breathes.
His son is downhill now, crouching near that stand of willows where the ground softens. He pulls out a short hand spade, nothing fancy, the kind you'd buy at a farm auction for $2, and pushes it into the earth about 8 inches down. He's not planting anything. He's reading the layers. Topsoil on top, sure, everybody's got that. But what's underneath? How fast does that soil change color? If you hit gray or blue clay a few inches down, that ground doesn't drain. Water comes in and sits. It sits in your crawl space. It sits under your barn slab. It sits where your leach field was supposed to work. A real estate listing will tell you about the acreage, the tree species, the mountain view. It will never tell you what's 8 inches below the surface. That's not a selling point. That's a secret the dirt keeps until you're already writing checks. And this is the part that gets missed by almost everyone who shops for land the way they shop for a house. You drive up, you see green, you see open sky, maybe a creek catching light through the trees, and your chest opens up and something in you says, this is it. This is the place. That feeling is real, but it's not information. It's a wish. And wishes don't dig fence posts. The Amish, and communities like them who've worked land for generations, who've made their living from what the ground will actually give, not what it looks like in a photograph, they've learned to separate those two things. The beauty of a place
and the truth of a place. They're not always the same thing. Sometimes they're opposites. The prettiest parcel on the market can be the worst piece of land you'll ever own.
The father stands up now, wipes his hand on his trousers, and starts walking. Not toward the home site, not toward the road, but toward the lowest point on the whole property. His son sees him coming, nods. They both look down at the ground, where the grass is a different green, darker, lusher. That lush grass looks beautiful in a listing photo. From a drone, it's the prettiest part of the field, but on foot, standing in it, you can feel the give under your boots. The ground is soft, too soft, spongy. Water is sitting under this grass, not a creek, not a spring, just water that came down from the slope above and has nowhere to go. It pools here. It's been pooling here for decades, every spring, every heavy rain. That pretty dark green strip is a drainage problem wearing a nice dress. This is what the father came to see first. Not the view, not the home site, not the acreage number, the water. Where does it go? Where does it collect? Where does it sit? Because water is the single thing that will ruin land faster than anything else, and it's the single thing a listing photo will never show you honestly. A creek looks charming until March comes and it swallows your barn foundation. A gentle slope looks perfect until you realize everything uphill is draining onto your front door. The Amish think about water the way a ship captain thinks about weather, with respect bordering on fear. They check it first, because if the water's wrong, nothing else matters. You can amend soil, you can clear trees, you can build new fence. You cannot re-engineer where water wants to go on a piece of land. The land already decided that a long time before you showed up. The son walks the perimeter of that low wet area now, pacing it off. He's not measuring for a garden. He's measuring for risk. How wide is this wet zone? Does it extend toward where you'd want to put a house? Is it seasonal or year-round? And here's the part that breaks more rural land dreams than anything else. The perk test, short for percolation. It measures how fast water drains through the soil. If you want a septic system, and on rural land you need a septic system, the soil has to drain at a rate the county will approve. If it doesn't drain fast enough, you fail. And if you fail the perk test, in most counties, you cannot build a habitable structure on that land. Period. That's not a negotiation. That's not something a good contractor can work around. That's a wall. And here is what will make your jaw tighten when you hear it. In most states, a realtor is not required to provide perk test results. They don't have to test. They don't have to disclose. They can sell you 40 acres with a beautiful view and a glossy listing and a drone video with music, and that land might not pass a perk test. You find out after you've bought it, after you've hired the surveyor, the excavator, the septic installer, after you've told your family, this is the place. The Amish don't find out after, they find out before. They find out before they even discuss price, because in their way of thinking, land that can't support a septic system isn't land you can live on. It's land you can look at. There is a very expensive difference between the two. The father is standing at the edge of that wet zone now. His son has walked back to him. They haven't spoken much.
There's a thing about watching people who genuinely understand land. They're quiet the way a doctor is quiet when reading a scan. They're not being dramatic. They're just seeing things that take a lifetime to learn how to see. And right now, looking at this pretty 40-acre parcel with the glossy sign by the road, the father has already learned more in 20 minutes on foot than the listing told you in 3 paragraphs and 12 photographs. He knows what the soil is made of. He knows where the water collects and why. He knows whether this ground will pass a perk test by the feel of it under his boots. 3 checks done. No lab, no laptop, no agent explaining away the puddle in the south field as just spring runoff.
Just 2 men, a hand spade, and the kind of knowledge that gets passed down the way most people pass down furniture, quietly, from one generation to the next, in the doing of it. But those 3 checks, soil, water, perk, they're the ones that happen with your eyes down, looking at the ground beneath your feet. What the father does next is different. He lifts his head. He walks to the property boundary, the eastern edge, where a rusted wire fence separates this 40 acres from whatever's next door, and he stands there, looking out. Not at his land, at theirs. This is the 4th check, and it's the one most buyers never think about, because the listing doesn't include a single photograph of the neighbor's property. What's uphill from you? What's upwind? What's upstream? If the land next door is a commercial operation spraying herbicide on 200 acres of soybeans, that chemical drift is crossing your fence line whether you invited it or not. If the parcel across the road just got rezoned for residential development, your quiet homestead has an expiration date written in county ink. The Amish don't evaluate land as an island. They evaluate it as a piece of a system, connected to everything touching it. The sun is at the western boundary now, looking the other direction. There's a cattle operation maybe a quarter-mile out. No buffer, no real fencing beyond that sagging wire. And if you've ever tried to keep a garden alive next to someone else's free-ranging cattle, you already know how that story ends. The listing didn't mention the cattle. Why would it? The listing is a portrait, cropped tight, showing you only what's inside the frame. But land doesn't work inside a frame. Rain doesn't stop at your property line. Smell doesn't stop. Noise doesn't. Runoff from a feedlot uphill will find your creek, your pond, your well water. It follows gravity, not legal boundaries. The father has seen this before, probably more than once. A beautiful piece of ground made unlivable, not by anything wrong with the land itself, but by what's happening just beyond its edges. He looks at that cattle operation the way you'd look at a crack in a foundation, not with panic, with calculation. Now the father turns back toward the road, the access road. And this is the 5th check, the one that has quietly destroyed more rural land deals than bad soil and bad water combined. He looks at the dirt road that connects this property to the county road, walks it slowly, looks at the ruts, looks at where it narrows between 2 properties that aren't his, and he asks his son a question. Simple, practical, the kind of question that sounds ordinary until you realize the weight behind it. Can they get a loaded wagon down this road in March? Not in June,
when everything's dry and firm, in March, in mud season, when the ground is soft and the ruts are 6 inches deep and the creek crossing at the low point is swollen and nobody's graded this road since October. Because legal access on paper is not the same thing as functional access in the real world. Landlocked properties, parcels with no guaranteed, maintained, legally deeded road access, are one of the most common traps in rural real estate. The seller might show you a path, a track through the trees that connects to the county road, and that track might cross someone else's land. It might depend on a handshake easement that was never recorded. It might be fine for a pickup truck in summer and completely impassable for an ambulance in January. The Amish think about access differently than most buyers because they don't think about it from a truck seat. They think about it from a wagon. Can I get my harvest out? Can I get building materials in? Can my family reach help if they need to in the worst weather of the worst month of the year without depending on somebody else's permission or somebody else's road? If the answer is no, if access depends on a neighbor's goodwill or a seasonal track that turns to soup every spring, then the land is not free. It's a trap with a view.
The father has been on this property for about 40 minutes now. He hasn't looked at the house site, the listing circled with a dotted line, hasn't admired the ridge view that took up half the listing description, hasn't mentioned the price. He's checked 5 things, and he's checked them in an order that tells you exactly what his priorities are. Soil first, because soil is the body of the land and it doesn't lie. Water second, because water will shape everything you try to build, grow, and live with on that ground. Purse third, because without septic viability, the land is a painting you can't live inside. Neighbors fourth, because land exists in context, not in isolation. Access fifth, because ownership means nothing if you can't reliably get to and from what you own. 5 checks. No spreadsheet, no agent, no drone footage. Just decades of knowledge, a hand spade, and a pair of boots that have walked away from more pretty land than most people will ever see listed. He turns to his son now, doesn't make a speech, doesn't list his objections or weigh pros and cons out loud. He says something short, maybe 4 or 5 words, something about the water, something about April. And his son nods, and they walk back toward the road where their driver is waiting in a plain sedan, engine off, reading a newspaper. 40 minutes on the land. No offer made. They climb in the car, the doors close, and they drive away from 40 acres that will sit on the market for another 6 months, maybe longer, while buyer after buyer falls in love with the drone photo of that rolling green field, that beautiful, lush, dark green strip of grass in the low field that looks so perfect from the air and holds a secret that only your boots can tell you. The for sale sign is still standing by the road. The land hasn't changed. It's the same 40 acres it was an hour ago. Same view, same tree line, same light falling across the open field. Nothing about its appearance is different. But if you were standing there now, watching that plain sedan pull away, something in you would be different. You'd look at that sign and feel something shift behind your eyes. Not fear, not anger, something quieter. The understanding that beautiful land and honest land
are not always the same thing. And the people who've known the difference longest are not the ones with a license and a listing. They're the ones with dirt under their fingernails and 3 centuries of memory in their hands. If someone you care about is looking at land right now, a son, a daughter, a friend who just retired and spends evenings scrolling listings with that hopeful ache in their chest, send them this. Not because it's a video, because it's the conversation nobody's having with them, and it might save them from writing checks they can't undo.
The field is empty now. Morning light has shifted. The fog burned off, and the land is just land again, open, quiet, waiting for whoever comes next. Somewhere down the road, 2 men in plain clothes already know the truth about it. And now, so do you. Not because someone handed you a checklist or sold you a course or told you to trust them. Because you stood in that field for 20 minutes in your mind and you felt what they felt. The weight of soil in your hand, the give of wet ground under your boots, the silence of a man who's learned that the most important things about any piece of land are the things that will never show up in a photograph. That knowledge is yours now. It cost you nothing but attention. Use it the way they would, slowly, carefully, with your eyes on the ground instead of the sky. And when you find the right piece of land, the one that passes all 5, you'll know. Not because it's beautiful, because it's true.